Hey everyone. Oh, and a third seven. Okay, at the bottom of the deck we have the Seven of Swords. Um, so this is an interesting card. I talked to a friend about discussing this card more, and I need to get back to you, Corky. I'm sorry. Um, now that I said that, I realize I have an unanswered email. Anyway, so this is my card where I say it's someone's behaving badly, and how do you deal with it when someone is behaving badly? Sorry, I realize I have my screen down. Do you get dragged down to their level? Do you brush it off? Do you learn to stay centered and realize, I think it's a Wayne Dyer quote, what other people do is their karma, how you react is yours, or I probably got that wrong, but something like that. So that's sort of the meaning to me behind this card. But it can also mean looking, because it's sort of a sneaky card or sort of a going in the back door type of card, that this week it may require you, instead of sort of bursting through the front door and saying, hey, I need this or this needs to change, you may need to finesse it a little, find a back way in, find um, you know, a different way of approaching a situation. And in the middle, we have the King of Swords. So part of you is going to be very much like, here are the facts, laying it out, cutting away all the bullshit. Here's where we are. Um, let's deal with this head on, and with the information we have. But then the Queen of Cups comes along and says, okay, I understand those are the facts, but there are still other issues and levels of the situation that we need to be aware of and be sensitive to. So that's tying in nicely to that Seven of Swords, where it's like, yep, okay, you're right, but to be successful, we may need to approach it in a gentler, different way to be able to get the results that we want. So what had been a focus is the Seven of Wands, and that's defending ourselves without being defensive. Um, so these are situations where you just want, it's that duality again between you're very passionate about what you believe and where you're coming from. And this was the theme of last week. How do we get that across, that message across, without having it get diluted in emotions? So you can't go from, oh, well, I can't be emotional because then I'll lose the message. But if you're too factual, then you lose the heart and soul and the human factor. So it's a balance. We're looking for a balance. We're looking for a way to express ourselves, to deal with a situation where the facts and the emotional aspect both get equal weight. So sort of crowning the reading, what we're dealing with here is that this situation is a process, and that we need to understand that it isn't something that we can just go in and say, okay, this is how it's going to be, and walk out the door and everything's going to be fixed. It's going to take a while. It's going to take everyone to go through their own process, as well as the process itself, if that makes any sense. Like, there are many different layers, many different ways people deal with things, including yourself. The situation may have, lots of different stages that it has to go through before it can be resolved or start changing. The card does call for patience, but more than that, it calls for an understanding of that there are just some things you can't rush, and to accept that, a feeling of acceptance and understanding that that must happen, and it kind of releases you from the anxiety and worry and frustration that things aren't happening fast enough. And so use this time, this downtime when things aren't happening, to make sure you're prepared, work on other things, staying calm and centered. And then when the time for action is right, you're going to be better prepared. Now, coming into focus at the moment is the Four of Gardens. And this is my card about boundaries. It can, traditionally, it shows, usually a man holding on to his pentacles, his coins, and he's like clutching them, like, I don't want anyone to get what I have, get my things. It's about, so his boundaries are incredibly strong. And I always like to bring up the Anna Kay Tarot because her depiction is so wonderful. It shows this man, and he has like bags of money and his coins and this stuff. And he's hunkered down on the ground, like hovering over his material things. And there's a stone wall behind him, and his family's on the other side, and they look sort of cold and shut out. So making sure that your boundaries are strong and clear enough that people are respecting them, but not so strong and clear, not so clear and impenetrable that you exclude other priorities that should not be excluded. So making sure, again, another card of balance, making sure that it's not sort of all or nothing. That balance again, not all or nothing. How do we get this? How do I get my idea across? How do I affect the change that I want to manifest? But how do I do it in such a way that I'm still marrying the head and the heart, and I'm putting up respectful boundaries, but not to the point of exclusion? Everyone's being heard, that type of situation. So it's going to take a lot of, manipulating, and not in a negative way, but in a skilled way. I'm going to leave it at that. So here are a couple overall cards. The Hierophant. So lots of spiritual lessons coming in, lots of wisdom, lots of little, either big or little aha moments where you start to really start understanding how the world works. You're gaining wisdom, more understanding, and how you interact with other people and your world, yourself. This situation is teaching you a lot. That's probably the bottom line of this card. You're going to gain an incredible amount of wisdom and growth by going through the situation where it's not clear cut, and there's a lot of, what's the word, recalibration, like reassessing and tweaking and finesse required. It's an active process. Even though we have this sort of passive card of patience, you're still, you can't force, but you still have to keep it going. This card's often depicted as the farmer, who gets the soil ready and plants the crops, but he has to, even though he can't force them growing, he has to make sure they're watered. He keeps deer and pests away. They get enough sun, but not too much sun, and he's making sure that he picks them when they're ripe. So there's still active things that need to be done, but they can be done in a grounded, centered, calm way. Oh, and the Three of Gardens. So for a lot of you, this is going to be at work. So how you handle the situation is more important than the outcome. Okay, so staying calm, staying open, staying good communication, being compassionate but not dramatic, looking at the facts but understand there's always a human factor in the work. I'm really feeling this is a work environment, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, this could be a situation in the home, anything. But people are watching, and people, not only are you going to gain wisdom, but other people are going to learn from how you're conducting yourself. So whether they learn more about you or they even learn some lessons about themselves about how to handle things, people are watching you and learning from you. So don't ever underestimate your actions and the power of your actions and your behavior, because you never know who might be watching, whether it's a child, a coworker, a boss, anyone in your that is in your environment you could potentially influence. So make sure that your actions are true and with good intentions. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. Take care.